So those of you who have been watching my YouTube videos, you know that for years now I've been talking about the salvation of Israel. The new covenant is for the whole house of Israel. Not one Israelite will be left behind, no matter how fragmented their DNA might be. I've been saying this, and the last thing about even the fragmented DNA will be brought in as Israelites. And I used Ezekiel 39 as proof. Well, today I'm going to dig deeper, much, much deeper. And I'm going to end up at Amos 9. And we're going to learn some shocking things today. But it proves that my point concerning fragmented DNA of Israel shall also be saved. Now, so I'm going to start with this particular article. The Jewish News of Northern California asks, who is a Jew? DNA home testing adds new wrinkle to old age debate. And as you can see when we start reading through this particular article, that there are some Jews that are offended by these DNA tests because not that long ago, the Nazis, they had their own determinations of who is a Jew and who is not, and they used the word Mischling. You see. In fact, I probably should go ahead and go to look up the word Mischling. Now, in the website Yad Vashem, hybrids, part Jews, the racial Nuremberg laws of September 1935 did not actually define who was legally to be considered a Jew. Thus, an additional decree was made in November 1935, which provided detailed definitions of a Jew, Aryan, or a Mischling. Jews were defined as people with at least 3 full Jewish grandparents. A Mischling of the first degree, or half-Jew, was a person with 2 Jewish grandparents who did not belong to the Jewish religion or who was not married to a Jew as of September 15, 1935. A Mischling of a second degree or quarter Jew was someone with 1 Jewish grandparent or an Aryan married to a Jew. In 1935, 72,000 first-degree Mischling and 39,000 second-degree Mischling were still living in Germany. The Mischling issue was very important to Adolf Hitler. The policy in Germany was to assimilate second-degree Mischling into the Aryan nation, while first-degree Mischling were to be considered Jews. Okay, I've had enough of this particular article. This is the reason why there are many Jews that are offended at these websites, these DNA websites. And I say they should be, and within this particular article, they show that these DNA websites only look at one small fraction of genes to determine what nationality your background is from, which is the reason why they're all over the place. You know, for instance, 23andMe might say you're 95% European and 1% this and 1% that and 1% that, while at the same time another one will say, well, you're 50% European, 5% North African, and so on and so forth. They're all over the place. So it's for good reason that the Jews view these DNA websites with suspect. More than one reason. All right, Jennifer Ortiz has a screenshot saved on her computer. It's an image that captures a moment that changed her life. Right there on the screen, Stuart Bloom is your father, she said, describing the message she received when she logged in to see the results of her home DNA test. Ortiz is one of millions of people who have taken a DNA test like the one sold by 23andMe or Ancestry.com. Ortiz, who grew up Catholic in Utah, found out from a test that she was 50% Ashkenazi Jewish As a result that led her to discover she was the child of Bloom, a Jewish photographer in San Francisco, and not the man who raised her. This is when my world changed, she says. But what is 50% Jewish? Now, those of you who are familiar with Jewish law, the Jews today would say she is not Jewish. Why is that? Because her mother was not Jewish. Her father was. So they would say she is not Jewish. But the Germans, they would have called her a Mischling. You see. Now, what would Jehovah, our Father in heaven, say? Let me show you something. So let's go to Amos 9. Now we have all these different translations. See? King James. And the Berean Study Bible says, "For surely I will command and I will shake the house of Israel." Now the house of Israel in those days was not Judah. It was the lost 10 tribes. But indeed, the same thing happened to the Jews after the destruction of Jerusalem. So this was many, many years before the destruction of Jerusalem and the scattering of the Jews. So the lost house of Israel is even more scattered and even buried more deeply among the Gentiles. Scattered the house of Israel among the Gentiles, the Goy. Well, we'll go down here and you'll see Goy, all right? Now, among the Gentiles, as grain is sifted in a sieve, but not a pebble will reach the ground. Young's Little Translation, I am commanding, and I have shaken among all the Gentiles the house of Israel, as one does shake a sieve with a sieve, and there falleth not a grain to the earth. And it says the same thing, not a pebble, not a kernel, not the least grain. However, when we go to Strong's Concordance, it says a bundle, parcel, a pouch, a bag, for not a least grain. Makes no sense. We'll try another particular Berean Bible uses a different concordance. And it says, not a kernel or particle will fall to the ground. Okay, so what is it then? You want to find the truth, folks? Let's go to the Tanakh. Now, unfortunately, in the Tanakh they use Lord God, and they should not do that. It's Jehovah Elohim. Verse 9. For behold, I will command and I will scatter the house of Israel among the Gentiles, as it is shaken in a sieve, and not a coarse particle falls to the earth. Now I'm going to go over what falls to the earth really means. Paul talks about it and he explains it. But a coarse particle, what is a coarse particle? Let us go to a glossary, a dictionary, and let's educate ourselves. This is the europa.eu English dictionary. Well, that's about as close to English as you can get, I would say. Coarse particles are relatively large airborne particles. Airborne particles. Well, in my mind, in my uneducated backwoods mind, that's really not very coarse. But I'm going to look it up and see what they say. mainly produced by mechanical breakup of even larger solid particles. Example of coarse particles include dust, pollen, spores, fly ash, and plant and insect parts. So since we're talking about grain, we're talking about parts of grain, the size of dust, pollen, spores, fly ash. That's exceedingly small. Would this particular young woman that we had just discussed, who found out that her father was a Jew, could she be described as such? A fine or a coarse particle? Absolutely. She would be half a particle. Now, here's where the problem is. Jewish law. Now, Jewish law is under the Old Covenant. Okay? So Jewish law would declare that Miss Ortiz, or maybe Bloom, Miss Bloom, would be more accurate, would be a Gentile and not a Jew. Because her mother was not a Jew and neither was her grandmother. Where did the Jews get this from? Well, they got this from, I believe it was the book of Ezra. It's in the book of Ezra, and let me see, holy seed, I believe, is the word to look for. Yes, it's Ezra 9, we'll start in verse 1. Now, when these things were done, the princes came to me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according to their abominations, even of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites, for they have taken of the daughters of their daughters, those people daughters for themselves, and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yes, the hand of the princes and the rulers have been the worst offenders in this trespass. And I heard this thing, and I ripped my garment and my mantle, and plucked off the hair of my head and of my beard, and sat there astonished. Then were the assembly assembled unto me, every one that trembled at the words of Jehovah of Israel, Elohim of Israel, because of this transgression that had been carried away, and I sat astonished until evening sacrifice. Now, this thing goes on quite a bit. So here, verse 12. Let me see if I'm at the right place. Well, he says, now therefore give not your daughters unto their sons, neither take their daughters unto your sons, nor seek their peace or their wealth forever, that you may be strong and eat the good of the land. Might have to go to the next chapter, or let's see here. People's confession of sin. All right, verse 11. Ezra 10 and verse 11. Now therefore, make confession unto Jehovah Elohim for your fathers, and do his pleasure, and separate yourselves from the people of this land, and from the strange wives. Now, when you said, let them all which have taken strange wives in our city come at the appointed time, and of the elders and of every city and the judges thereof, until the fierce wrath of Jehovah. So what happened? Oh, it says, and the children of the captivity did so. So they did it. And they also put away, they made an end with all the men that had taken strange wives from the first day of the first month. And all the children had to be banned from the land as well. That's what it. This is where the rabbis today get their doctrine from. This is still old covenant doctrine. Okay? Now, I mean, this. If you care to read, you should then read all of the book of Ezra, and you will see what happened. They had to get rid of their foreign wives and the children born of the foreign wives, and they were not to be considered Jews. Right. Now, so what about the new covenant? Let us go back to Amos 9 in verse 9. For behold, I will scatter the house of Israel among all the Gentiles, as it is shaken in a sieve, and not a coarse particle falls to the ground. Now we go to Romans 11. I'm going to go ahead. I think I'm done with the book of Ezra right now. I'll use this. We'll go to Romans 11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? The word fall here is to fall prostrate. Fall to the ground. You see. Paul said no. Amos 9 says no. We look in Amos 9 verse 9 says no. Not only that, he says this. Not even a coarse particle, which means not even a mushroom spore of them, not even a pollen kernel of them, and not even an airborne particle will fall to the ground. Getting a little closer, folks. Getting a little closer. This takes place with not a coarse particle falls to the ground. That takes place when the new covenant is for the whole house of Israel. We continue with Romans 11, and I use Romans 11 a lot, I must confess. Now we must remember that the old covenant condemned the people of Israel because they sinned and they would not walk in the paths of Jehovah and they would not separate themselves from the Gentiles. And so what did Jehovah do? He says, fine, you want to go and intermarry with the Gentiles? I will scatter you among the Gentiles. So he says, now if have they stumbled that they should fall prostrate to the ground? If you fall prostrate, you fall to the ground. Jehovah forbid. So Paul, very aware of what is written in Amos 9 and verse 9, but through their false step, through their trespass, salvation is come to the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. Now, if the trespass of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them be the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? So what he's saying is their fullness is going to be even more than that which was promised in the old covenant. Even more, not equal, no, more. More. What do you mean more? Well, let's look at something here. People have blasphemed, have slandered Israel using Revelation 9. But today I'm going to show you a truth in Revelation 9 that you probably have never seen before. Now, before I even get started, you'll see right here 144,000 have sealed. Now, if you were to go to Google and look up the 144,000 and then type in church, you're going to see all kinds of twisted versions of Revelation 7. Let me show you something. All right. The number of 144,000 appears 3 times in the book of Revelation. So the JWs, I won't call them Jehovah's Witnesses because you cannot be a witness of Jehovah and call the Messiah Jesus Christ. Can't do it. So they're not Jehovah's Witnesses. All right, so they believe that exactly 144,000 faithful Christians from Pentecost of 33 AD until present day will be resurrected to heaven as immortal spirit beings that spend. They believe the 144,000, which they can see synonymous with the little flock of Luke 12:32, etc., etc. While all other people accepted by God as other sheep. Well, what is it? And the Mormons, they think it relates to them in some way. It relates to the high priest ordained into the holy order of, as they say, God, which God is not the name of Jehovah. God is the name of a foreign idol. Godin, a one-eyed old Norse god. That has nothing to do with the Elohim of Israel. To administer the everlasting gospel, for they are they who are ordained out of every nation, kindred, and tongue. How can the 144,000 be ordained out of every kindred and tongue and people when it says something else? So once again, when in doubt, let the scripture speak for itself and be careful. Use Strong's Concordance if necessary and cross-reference with the prophets. Cross-referencing with the prophets is key. Now, and I heard the number of them which were sealed, and there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Now, I want to go to Strong's Concordance because there is conflict here that I will address right now. Now, when you see the word all in English and pas in Greek, what is it saying? Well, pas in Greek would be every tribe of Israel. There's not a single one excluded. So why then is Dan excluded in this whole section here? I will show you why, and if John or Yohanan says every tribe of the children of Israel, that means Dan as well. So what happened here? Did Yohanan screw up? No, he did not. Interpreters did. I'll show you where they screwed up. Of the tribe of Yehuda were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Reuben were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Gad were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Asher were sealed 12,000. They can't even spell the names correctly in pronunciation. You see, it's not Asher, it's Asher. It's not Judah, it's Yehuda. Get it? You see how mistakes can be made? Naphtali were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Manasseh, that's how you say it, not Manassas. But now I'll continue and I'll show you the mistake. We're sealed 12,000. Out of the tribe of Shimeon were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Levi were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Issachar were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Zebulun were sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Joseph, sealed 12,000. Of the tribe of Benjamin were sealed 12,000. Did you see the mistake? Did you see it? If you are a Jew, you will notice it right away. But if you're a Christian, you won't. Why? Because you don't read Moses and the prophets. That's the reason why you don't notice the screw up. Well, I'm going to show you the screw up today. You see, when the lost 10 tribes of Israel are counted, and the house of Yehuda is counted, the house of Yehuda is counted as Levi, Benjamin, and Yehuda. The house of Israel would be counted as the other 9 tribes, but with Joseph counted as Ephraim and Manasseh. But if all the 12 tribes of Israel are counted together, and every Jew knows this, then Joseph is counted as one tribe. Therefore, Manasseh cannot be counted but as under Joseph. You see. And there is your screw up. You cannot therefore count all the tribes of Israel together as Joseph and Manasseh. You have to count them as Joseph, with Manasseh and Ephraim being represented under the tribe of Joseph. And that is how you bring all 12 tribes together in this equation. An unlearned and unstable person, the kind that Peter warned about, twisted Yohanan's words and may have done so to his own destruction. Let's not twist the words, folks. Let's not do this. Now, that means the rest of Israel are lost forever, right? Wrong. This is the new covenant after all. And as we learned in the book of, is it James? Yeah, James, that mercy triumphs over judgment. The old covenant provided judgment against the people of Israel. I will go there. Come on. Seriously? Oh, rejoices. So is James 2, verse 18. 2, verse 13. So he says, those who judge without mercy will be judged without mercy because mercy rejoices against judgment. And so those Christians who screamed, the Jews killed Jesus, the Jews killed Jesus, and they went forward with their swords and their crosses to murder the Jews, they didn't show any mercy. So who were showed no mercy? Watch this here. Who showed no mercy? Now, let's see here. Hosea 2, verse 23. Now, Paul indeed used this concerning the Gentiles, but let's see what it says. This is concerning the people of Israel. The day will come, says Jehovah, that you shall call me Ishi, and no more call me Baali. You will no longer call him the Lord or Baal. Let's go to Strong's Concordance. I know I'm getting away from myself here, but this should be a learning moment for everyone. See, a symbolic name for Yah or Jehovah. But what does Baal mean? Let me show you something. Lord, right here. That's the reason why everyone uses the name the Lord today. So that name is going to be taken out of her mouth. And you Christians should know better. But you're going to say the Lord anyway, regardless. But anyway, I will continue. For I will take the names, all the names of Baal, that heathen idol, out of her mouth. And remember, they shall no more be remembered by their name. They won't remember that name anymore. And that day I will make a covenant, not with the beasts of the field. Why did King James Version do this? I will make a covenant of the age of that time. This is concerning the new covenant of the field with the fowls of heaven and with the creeping things of the ground. And I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the land, and will cause them to lie down safely. And I will betroth you unto me forever. I betroth you unto me in righteousness and judgment and loving kindness and in mercies. Let's see here. Now, what happened to the it's 2 in verse 3, is it? Nope. I lost my place. Please bear with me for a minute. 2 in verse 23. And the days will come where he will testify, says Jehovah. Testify, heaven. Testify, earth. And the earth will testify the corn, the wine, and the oil, and they shall testify Jezreel. Now, Jezreel is Yisrael. Yisrael is Israel. And I will sow under her me in the earth, and I will have mercy upon one that had no mercy. And I will say to them which are not my people, you are my people, and they shall say, you are my Elohim. But Paul, and rightly so, used that scripture as well for the Gentiles. Because there was a time when the Gentiles were not his people. After that generation, as we talked about in previous video, was rejected of the Jews, they no longer were his people. Just like the house of Israel were no longer his people. You can read the whole book of Hosea and you can find that is the truth. In fact, you can go to Hosea 1 and you'll find a summary. When she had weaned Lohurami, she conceived and bare a son and said, proclaim his name Lo-Ami, because you are not my people, and I will not be your Elohim. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured. Are you listening? You're not listening. You know how I know you're not listening? Because you don't want to read the prophets. Now I want you to listen again. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured and numbered. Now it says the children of what? Israel, right? Does it say the church there? No, it does not. Does it say the Gentile there? No, it does not. It says the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered, and it shall come to pass in that place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there shall it be said to them, you are the sons of the living Elohim. Then shall the children of Yehudah and the children of Israel be gathered together, and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land of the Gentiles, for great shall be the day of Jezreel or Yisrael. Great shall be the day of Israel or Yezreel. Two meanings here. He's calling Israel, Jehovah sows the seeds. Now that we have read this, I want you to read this yet again for a third time. These are the ones who said, you are not my people, yet the number of the children of the Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. An innumerable multitude that you cannot count. Now, and it shall come to pass in the place. What place? Let me show you something. And after this, behold, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number. Now it says, of all. That's the problem with English, folks. That's the problem with English. Of has a different meaning than what the word from out of. They were gathered from out of the Gentiles. See, ek has a two, what is it? It's one of the most undertranslated and therefore mistranslated Greek proposition, often being confined to the meaning by. Why? Because of the English language and the sloppiness thereof. It does not mean come out of. It does not mean they came out of every nation. It says come. Okay, let me rephrase what I just said. It does not say what you see here. Let's start over again. Of all. See, English says, when you say of a particular nation, well, I'm of Italy. That means you're Italian. But if you are taken out of Italy, that means you didn't belong there to begin with. Let's see. Illegal aliens in the United States, for example. When they are found, they generally take them out of the land of the United States and put them back where they belong. Yeah, my apologies for my stuttering, folks. I am not a well-versed orator by any means, but one thing that I will tell you is I will find a truth, and I'll hold fast to it. So, that does not mean they're of Italians, of the French, no, from out of the Gentiles, as we just read in the prophets. Now we can go to, let's see here. Let's go to from out of the nations. All right, Ezekiel 38. In verse 8. And after a long time, you'll be summoned in the latter days, and you shall come into the land that was brought out of from the sword and is gathered out of many people. Against who? The mountains of Israel. It is Israel that's going to be gathered out of the many peoples. Now we can read this in context. You see how hard it was for me to even say it properly because the English language is so corrupt. Which no man could number. We just read in Hosea, as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. Who is he talking about then? Revelation. It's not of all nations, but from out of all the nations, from out of all the Gentiles, from out. From out of all the kindreds, from out of all the people, from out of all the tongues. And they will stand before the throne. Where is the throne going to be? In Israel, on the Temple Mount. And before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Clothed with white robes. What are these white robes? Well, you can look it up on, it's a wedding garment. Let me show you something. Jewish wedding garment. Well, this is the female version. What does a Jewish man, a Jewish male wedding garment? Oh. Okay. This is a good example right here. All right. So as you can see, these are the wedding garments this is Jewish custom. This is what they're going to be wearing. And they cried with a loud voice, Salvation Elohim, who sits upon the throne, and the Lamb. And all the angels stood round about the throne, and all the elders and the four beasts fell before the throne on their faces and worshiped Elohim, saying, uh, uh, So be it. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might to be our Elohim, unto our Elohim forever and ever. Then it says this. Here's another clue, folks. It is necessary for you to listen to all the previous videos, the previous last 5 videos, in order for you to get the full concept of this. And one of the elders answered and saying unto him, What are these that are arrayed in white robes? And where did they come from? And I said unto her, Sir, you know. And he said unto me, These are they which came out of great tribulation. Now, as I have pointed out in the last probably 4 or 5 videos, there are 2 great tribulations. One for Israel and the Jews, and one for the Gentiles. And they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Now, we will go to the book of Isaiah. White as snow. Isaiah 1 verse 18. Who's he talking to? Talking to Judah's rebellion, meaningless offerings. Then he says this, Wash yourself, make yourself clean, put away the evil from your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do well, seek justice, relieve the oppressed. Give justice to the fatherless, plead for the widow's sake. Come now and let us reason together, saith Jehovah. Though your sins be as scarlet, they will be white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as white wool. Now, this is a promise. This is a promise right here, and he is going to carry that promise out. So, says they shall serve him night and day in his temple, and he that sits on the throne shall dwell among them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun light on them, nor any heat. Now we can do this. I can go to Isaiah 60, but I want to do something here. Shall hunger no more. It only shows one. I believe there's more. I guess it would be I knew it was in Isaiah 60. I need to go to Revelation 21 as well. So we'll go to Isaiah 60. This is concerning Israel. The sons of those that afflicted you shall come bending to you, and all those that despise you shall bow themselves at the soles of your feet. See Revelation 3. And they shall call you the city of Jehovah, Zion, the holy of Israel, the Kodesh of Israel. Whereas you have been forsaken and hated, that no man went through you, I will make you an eternal excellency. Now we go down here. The sun shall no more be your light. Where do you find that? The book of Revelation. What is Isaiah 60 talking about? Zion, the one in Israel, Jerusalem. The sun shall no more be your light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto you, but Jehovah will be for you an everlasting light. Now, but there's more. I'll find it. Well, right here it says your days, right in same 16 verse 20, it says, in your days of your sorrow will end. Jeremiah 31, the New Covenant chapter, says they will sorrow no more. Isaiah 54 verse 4 says, you shall no more remember the reproach of your youth. You're no longer going to live in the shame of your youth. Here it is. This is the one I was looking for. Isaiah 65. I knew I was going to find it. This one's going to be very hard for you Christians to escape. I love it. Verse 17, for behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former things shall not be remembered, neither come to mind. But be you glad and rejoice forever in that which I created. For behold, I created Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem. Not in the sky. No, no, no. This is going to be in Jerusalem, Israel. And joy in my people. So he's going to rejoice in Jerusalem, and when he sees his people in joy, Jehovah's going to rejoice then too. And the voice of weeping shall no more be heard in her, and the voice of crying. Now we will go to both right here. So where do you suppose, which prophet do you suppose that this was taken from? And Elohim shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, no crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things have passed away. What former thing has passed away? The old covenant. The new covenant for Israel. What does it do? There's no longer going to be this, well, you're a half Jew, but not on your mother's side. You Gentile, get out of here. It's not going to be like that. We read in Amos 9 and verse 9. When the new covenant is issued to Israel, is given to Israel, not one coarse particle, aka not one spore, not one grain of pollen, not one speck of dust is going to be left behind. Not a trace, not a single DNA link of Israel is going to be left behind. All are going to be brought back to the Holy Land. if that weren't true, then let's look at this. Hosea 7 and verse 8. Ephraim has mixed himself among the Gentiles, among the nations. He's completely mixed with the nations so that you cannot find their DNA anymore. I guess there's no hope. I guess we can't find Ephraim. Ephraim is standard for the lost 10, he was the leader of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And even is mentioned in right here in Psalm 106:35, they mingled themselves with the nations and adopted their customs. Let's just see how this turns out. And they learned the works, and they served their idols, which became a snare to them, and they sacrificed their sons and their daughters, and shed the innocent blood, and they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. Therefore was the wrath of Jehovah was kindled against his people, and he abhorred his own inheritance, and he gave them into the hand of the Gentiles. And those who hated them ruled over him, and their enemies also oppressed him. And they were brought into subjection under the land. Many times he delivered them, but they rebelled his counsel. Nevertheless, he regarded their affliction, and he heard their cry, and for their sake he remembered his covenant, and relented according to the multitude of his mercies. And he also made them to be pitied by all those who carry them away captives. Save us, Jehovah Elohim, and gather us from among the Gentiles, to give thanks to your holy name, to triumph in your praise. Blessed be Jehovah Elohim of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting, and let everyone say, so be it. How about you? They were mingled, mixed among. He is going to save every one of them, not by the old covenant, which would reject the paternal line, but he's going to save those of the paternal line and of the maternal line. That is the new covenant for Israel, folks. And I don't care what you Gentiles think. If you don't like it, then you're never going to accept the new covenant. If you want to know how Gentiles can participate in the new covenant, then you need to read all of Romans 11, where it says you must be grafted in. And if some of the branches be broken off, verse 17, and you being a wild olive tree, you were grafted in with them, and with them, partaking jointly with them, a partaker or co-partner with them, a close companion. But you, Christian, you were not a close companion, were you? No, you weren't. You mistreated them. You mistreated every one of them. So you can't be a co-partner or a co-sharer, sharing jointly with them if you mistreated them. You get the curses if you mistreated them. This is the only way the Gentiles can be saved. And he said, boast not against the branches. But you didn't listen to Paul. You see? So, and it says this in verse 25, for I would not, brethren, Roman brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, And my, oh my, oh my, how ignorant the Gentiles are ignorant of this mystery these days. I'm going to say it again. And you shall be ignorant still. Those of you who decide to remain ignorant, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the time of the Gentiles comes to the full, or comes to the end. And so every, all things Israel, every speck of Israeli DNA, whether they be of the house of Yehuda or the house of Israel, which the DNA companies cannot find, because without Jehovah's mercy, they will be lost forever and ever and ever, mixed among the Gentiles. But because it is written, every Israelite shall be saved, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away unholiness from Jacob. It does not say the church, it says Jacob. Because this is my covenant with them when I shall take away their sins. What sins? Well, one of them was intermarriage. I'm going to take away that sin too. All of it. And forgive it and remember it no more. Concerning the gospel, they might be enemies for your sakes, but concerning the election, they are the beloved for the patriarch's sakes. Yes, they are the elect after all. I don't care what you say, Roman, Christian. And as we see down here, for you in times past have not believed Jehovah, you have now obtained mercy. How many times does it say mercy here? Mercy, 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 mercy. Mercy to the mixed up among the Gentiles people of Israel. You see? Once again, Amos 9 and verse 9. For behold, I will command, and I will scatter the house of Israel among the Gentiles, as is shaken in a sieve, yet not a coarse particle will fall to the ground or fall prostrate, as Paul talked about in Romans 11. That means not one kernel, but wait a minute, not just one kernel, not one half a kernel, no, not just one half a kernel, not even an airborne particle will be wasted. They will all be salvaged. Don't put a limit on Jehovah's mercy. Because if you do, he might set those limits on you.